Today on the show, we have industry vet Scot McCraken. Scot has had an amazing and diverse career as former SVP of Global Marketing for London Steer Records, Warner Music Group, Senior A&R and Atlantic Records, and he's worked with artists such as the Black Eyed Peas, 98 Degrees, Fugees, and Lauryn Hill. Scot is currently the president of a new music admin company called Eureka Music. Hi, Scot.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here. What do you see as one of the major hurdles for songwriters today?
Putting food on the table, honestly. I mean, to be very blunt, I think figuring out how to monetize that talent.
Absolutely.
There's an enormous opportunity that's been created in the way that people are consuming music now, especially like film and television. You know, the sync business wasn't what it is 10 years ago because we didn't have Netflix and Hulu and all these new content people creating stuff that needs music with it. But at the same time, it feels like there's 10,000 more songwriters than there were, 10 years ago. So I think the biggest challenge is figuring out how to make money from it. And that takes a plan. And it takes, if you don't address that career as if it were any other career in, say, marketing or sales or finance, if you don't approach it with that same strategy and commitment to understanding the beginning and the end, the only way you'll have success is some fluke.
Yeah.
And we all know in this business that, there's a million people who had that moment of success and they never capitalized on it.
I know.
Because they didn't know really how to behave and monetize that moment. So that's the hardest thing. I think finding advocates is really hard as a songwriter. You're sort of, unfortunately, and I think much to my, my personal frustration, that songwriters are the most important people in the equation, right? If they don't write
Absolutely.
a song we want to record and hear, then we don't have anything. But they are the most underrepresented.
100%.
They're the person in the equation who, at the end of the deal, they're the people left where people are like, whether it's a producer or a label or a song plugger or whomever that decides, I need to make a little bit more money and I'm going to take it out of the songwriter because they are low-hanging fruit. They don't have advocates most of the time. They're desperate for an opportunity and they will agree to almost anything short of like taking their ear or something to get the opportunity. And that's a tragedy. And I think there are many reasons why I think music today is particularly boring, in the sense that music has always been about labels. They always chased what was happening. And, it's not until you have like a Billie Eilish that comes along who kind of redefines a sound where people are like, had the courage, like whoever, I don't know who signed her and promoted her. Those are some courageous people.
100%.
Because her sound was bizarre to the person trying to find something that met the what was current in pop's sort of pop music.
Well, she changed the industry.
Totally.
Like that sound. Look how many artists nowadays are out there literally mimicking that sound.
Absolutely. But unfortunately, most of the creative executives in music are trying to just chase a sound.
Yeah.
So because they're trying to chase a sound, you've got people writing songs that sound generic. And then because it's a generic sounding song, people feel entitled to, strip away publishing or other pieces of equity from the songwriter. And it leaves them in a really terrible place where even if I'm sure you know this too, there's songwriters out there that have cuts and syncs and they're still a barista on the weekends.
Yep. You hinted at something that I thought was really interesting. You hinted at the fact that they would cut off their ear for an opportunity. You're absolutely right. I mean, songwriters don't get points. Literally. And yet they are the heart and soul of the song.
100%.
It's mind-boggling to me. And it's not, they don't even get an upfront fee most of the time. If they're lucky, they do.
I mean, the business is set up to take advantage of creative people who just can't imagine their life being any other way.
100%.
I mean, look at a record deal, right? It's always funny to me when I would have these conversations where, I'm saying to an artist, so you're going to sign a 15-point royalty record deal. And they're thinking, okay, well, that's 15% of it. Okay. And then I explain to them, but you're recouping at your rate. So if the label gives you $100,000, whether it's an advance and production costs and marketing, and they make a video and a photo shoot, and they roll all that into $100,000, they make their money back once they've made $100,000. You they'll take 15 cents out of every dollar to pay down that $100,000.
Yeah.
So you're upside down forever.
Yeah, it's a bad bank deal. That's what it is.
And so the business has been designed by people who know that artists are willing to give up almost anything for an opportunity. And it's really frustrating.
It's incredibly frustrating. Speaking of frustrating and helping artists, talk to me about Eureka Music.
So Eureka Music is I met the founder of Eureka about 2 years ago. And when we met, they were doing some really interesting stuff in the area of IP protection, trying to provide an opportunity for content creators to have their work verified so that when you are purchasing something, an NFT or a digital piece of content, there was somebody out there who was doing the work behind the scenes to say that the person selling it had acquired that or created that, or acquired it and had the rights to do it or created it, and that they could transfer or sell that to you, and that it wasn't stolen or fraud. And that's why the NFT market collapsed, because I think it was the CEO of OpenSeas who said, I think 80% of the stuff on our platform is fraud.
Oh, wow.
So apart from the ridiculousness of buying, $80,000 pictures of apes, those people must feel so embarrassed today. I mean, I hope they feel embarrassed today. But what Eureka Music is set out to do is to be the brand of Eureka is to be about protecting creators, and whether that's a digital artist, graphic artists, it spans all the spectrum of content creators. Specifically, Eureka Music is about protecting songwriters and providing songwriters with an advocacy, with someone that's going to help truly exploit their music in ways that most other admin companies can't do or won't do.
I love that. Can you go a little bit more into detail about that?
Sure. So collecting your publishing royalties is a pretty boring job, right? It's spreadsheets and, yawn, data scraping, and put me to sleep. And most of those companies are set up, their business model is that they collect the money for you, they take their piece, and they send you a check and a statement. And I've always felt like as the world of co-publishing deals has shrunk and the money's been less, people are more interested in admin deals now because they don't want to sell their
yeah, of course.
And most admin companies out there are doing 20%, and that's sort of what their standard, fee is. But they provide no additional service to you. And I looked at the numbers and I thought, well, it would take longer to make the money back. But if we invested money in helping to exploit those copyrights that we signed to Eureka, then long term, we're in good shape.
Of course.
And we're well financed, so we have the money and the passion to do both, right? So, because you can have all that passion and no money and you're screwed, right? Or you can have all that money and no passion.
Yeah.
So, did I say that right? All that money and no passion, or no passion and all that money. Right. Anyway, so I've been doing this a long time, and I've always felt songwriters were really special. Artists get more advocates in their life, but songwriters don't.
I agree with you.
Because they can't afford it. So we've built a company that will do the traditional admin stuff, and we've got a collection deal with Cobalt, who's, in my opinion, the best there is.
Yeah, they are.
And we've built our own platform for our own dashboard. I love the dashboard we've built. So we've created this environment where you can expect all the tech that you would get from the best of the best, like the Cobalts, but smaller, more relational, and have more active people working on your behalf on your copyrights than you would at a traditional admin company that just services your collections.
Yeah, one of my personal favorite things about Eureka is the fact that you're focusing on actually the songwriter. Funny enough, the education, the songwriting camps, the mentorships, all of those things I think are so positive and so different for a pub admin company to be doing than anyone else is doing. So I think that really puts Eureka ahead, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how complicated the world of publishing and collections of publishing. I mean, it's basically a business that started, the turn of the 19th century to track the collection of sheet music sold in saloons, and no one really overhauled it. Every time a new technology came in that sold music, they just kind of bootstrapped some new mechanism in place to collect. So when albums suddenly started selling, and they created some publishing arrangements around the world, but they just continue to sort of band-aid it.
Yeah.
But like if you look at what the streaming platforms have done, they've revolutionized how people absorb music now. But nothing like that has been done in publishing.
Yeah. It's outdated technology.
It's very outdated, and so it's no shocker to me that most people don't understand how it works, because I have to tell you, I talk to people in this business every day who don't understand how it works.
Yeah.
And they're music executives, So I've always enjoyed the process of teaching people. I think educating songwriters is as about as important a thing as we can do at Eureka. As well as like this, what consists of a songwriter today is different than what it was even 10 years ago. Speaking about this artist that that I manage, we were just talking about a minute ago. Like, you couldn't be a guy making music about the gamer community 15 years ago and seeing the kind of growth you had. Labels would look at you and be like, I don't get where this goes, and they wouldn't sign you, and you'd have no other options. And now you have, with all these outlets, you have all this ability to make money with your songs. But if you don't understand how to collect it, it's all for naught, Yeah.
It's amazing to me, actually, how many artists aren't collecting all of their royalties.
It's incredible to me. We're in West Hollywood here, right? The mecca of like the struggling songwriter. It is in Nashville. And I cannot tell you how many people I have spoken to in the last 5 years. And Eureka's, just as a manager, Eureka's, brand new. But just like in the last 5 years, I've spoken to more songwriters who say to me, I don't want to do an admin deal yet because I want to wait for a co-pub deal. Meanwhile, they got cuts, K-pop cuts that are getting...
Oh, yes.
Making money outside of the U.S., and all that money goes into a pool that they don't get. Like, they think that every time their song gets played, somebody writes them a check, and that's not the case. That money, every territory outside of the U.S., it goes into a pool, and then you have to assert a claim against that pool, and if you don't assert that claim in the year it would happen, then you got like about a 3-year window where it diminishes, but you can still grab onto some of it. But after 3 years, it's over. And I've seen people like say to me, well, I'm not ready to do a deal yet because I want to wait for that big co-pub deal to come along. And I'm thinking, so you're gonna hope for something to happen
and leave all that money on the table.
Leave all that money uncollected for yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I still love him though.
Well, I agree with you. The song, without the songwriter, there's no song, and I think that's really where it starts. Yeah. And but I actually think all of it is an education. I think that we've been taught the wrong ways, and I think that what Eureka is doing is just so incredible, because we need to start at the basics. 100%. We need to talk about the difference between publishing and publishing and master. Like, I know songwriters that don't even know how a song breaks down. Yet, and some of them have massive K-pop hits, and it blows my mind. So I really appreciate what Eureka is doing. So what are some of the biggest obstacles that you think songwriters are facing right now, besides just not understanding?
Something I said a minute ago, like the amount of people trying to become songwriters is grown significantly, because there's a lot more opportunity for songs to get monetized because of all this television content now that's hit the world. So there's just a lot more people out there banging on doors. So like if you're a songwriter and you don't have your hustle down, don't waste your time.
Yeah, you have to hustle.
Yeah, because you can't afford a manager most of the time. I represent songwriters, and I could care. To me, that's part of the business that's pro bono. I do it because I'm just lucky enough to have those people in my life. I make no money from them, but supporting them is good for our business, and it's good for my company, and that mentality has just become what Eureka Music is. Right? I've just taken that passion that I have and found like-minded people to start this business with. There are things today that are different than they were 10, 15 years ago. Most of the song you hear on radio or the top 40 platforms, most of that stuff was all made in the box and didn't cost anybody anything other than a producer fee. It's not like it was 20 years ago where you had to hire players, and you could use, obviously people use a lot of samples, especially in hip hop. But today you can program a guitar part and it'll just play it. You don't have to hire a musician to do it.
Yep.
So there are barriers that have broken down that make the process of getting your music to sound like how you hear it in your head pretty inexpensively. But you're swimming against a current of thousands of other people all doing the same thing. So
well, they were saying, I just read that there was a news article today, it's 100,000 songs uploaded daily is what the average is right now.
Yeah,
it's insane.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody about that issue the other day, because I've heard the number from 40 to 100. Yeah. Like I've heard, and this business is we're so full of shit in this business. Everybody pulls numbers out of their ass.
True.
Like they're the one doing the actual counting, and they have no fucking clue. They just heard it from somebody. But I was talking to a former editor at Spotify, who told me that it's about 60,000, but over half of that the last 2 years has been classical music.
Oh.
So the majors have been, they dumped all their catalog in, and so now they're trying to get to their classical catalogs. Oh. So a lot of the music that's getting ingested right now is actually music like, Deutsche Grammophon and all the majors uploading classical stuff, but still, let's just say it's half of that. You're still talking about 30,000 songs a day getting uploaded to a platform that relies exclusively on an algorithm to define where you put you and how, you and I talk about this stuff all the time.
That's crazy. Classical. It makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
That was my reaction to it too. It's like, oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
wow.
Massive amounts of classical catalog being ingested right now into the streaming platforms.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. So
that's super interesting.
If you think that being a songwriter is about being hip and cool and
all the parties and all that,
all the parties and the glamour, you have missed that completely. It is probably one of the most unglamorous jobs there could be, right?
You do how many sessions, and you get lucky if the artist decides to cut it, and then you get lucky if it decides to be a single, and then you get lucky if it charts. It's so many hurdles upon hurdles upon hurdles.
And if you make a little noise, then you're going to be confronted with multiple people who are going to decide that you are a target that they can take advantage of, because you have no advocacy on your behalf, or you don't understand the business the way you should, and will come in and will rob you. Yep. And you won't know about it until, years later, when hopefully you meet someone who has a little bit more of a passion for songwriters and, enlightens you on the mistakes that you made. But I wouldn't want to be a songwriter today. I really wouldn't. It is so hard. I've said this. It's like, I think I'd rather go to medical school than to come to Hollywood and try to be a songwriter.
That's intense.
It is intense.
That's very intense.
This community, and it's just as bad, or if not worse, in Nashville. Yeah. People will do 3 songwriting, sessions a day. Yeah. And every
not get
day,
paid for it.
And not get paid. You get no pay for that. So the only and you're lucky to see your money 18 months after.
Oh, you're very lucky if you see it 18 months
after the song's been released and exploited. So it's like, if you want to be a songwriter, you got to think to yourself, okay, well, it's going to take me, let's say, 2 years to get here, network, build a group of people around me I like to write with that, have the same things and aesthetics and musical opinions that I have. And then once that 2 years is done, then I got to start writing, and then it's going to take me some time to write quality. And then once I get that quality written, those cuts going to take me another 2 years to collect.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, that's why we're lucky to have people like you and Eureka pushing for songwriters and advocating for them, because I think it is definitely a field that we need to be advocating for.
One of the long-term goals that I have for Eureka Music, and this is a long-term goal, but is to use blockchain technology to shorten the timeline between the exploitable moment of a song and the money hitting the songwriter's account. Yeah. And because the business is so archaic that there's so many hands that touch that money. Like, if you have a song and it's getting played in Germany and you're a U.S. writer, by the time that you get that money, it's gone through 3 different people, and it's taken forever. And if we could, through consensus building, find a way to put blockchain nodes in these territories that are collecting out of pools, quarterly.
Yeah.
You could see your money in 4 to 6 months.
Versus 18.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Still 4 to 6 months. I mean, if you were to say to a major corporation in this country, we pay on, 6 months terms, they would laugh at you and never do business with you. But you're the songwriter, so deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of roads that we still have to beat down and doors, but I think we're getting to a better place, and companies like Eureka are definitely going to be on the forefront of that.
And there are other publishing admin companies out there with the same spirit of loving. This isn't a zero-sum game. Like if Eureka Music isn't right for you, there are other pub admins out there that care about artists and care about songwriters and want to be in this space. And
Absolutely.
We're not the only game in town, and I would encourage writers to really seek that out.
Yeah. I always tell people you want to find someone that's going to be cheering with you. Not just for you, but with you, because that's the key. I can cheer for people all the time, but when I'm in the trenches with them, I think that's when you really know you have a good partner on your hand.
100%.
You know?
I mean, that feeling, too, is one of the greatest feelings in the world. Is like, you spent 2 years really
grinding,
struggling, taking it in the chin every day for somebody, and then something pops, and you're like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah.
That joy is there are very few things in life
that make that. Yeah. I agree with you.
Wedding day. I can't remember my prom, but those moments are like major milestones.
Absolutely.
And they're beautiful.
No, I agree completely with you. It's always fun to see, especially developing artists when you're working with them so hard, and then they have that viral moment or they have that massive sync that there's no better feeling in the world. I could not agree with you more. Speaking about songwriters, any advice that you have for up and coming songwriters?
The most important thing I can say is just don't settle.
Oh, I love that.
You're going to be forced to be like, look, it's 4 hours. We got to go. We're done. Let's move on to the next set. And if something isn't where you think it needs to be the squeaky wheel. Rewrite something. Change a lyric. Put a bridge in. Take a bridge. Whatever it is, do not settle, because odds are you're not going to make it.
I know.
I hate saying that, but
it's
just statistically,
100%.
If I'm a guy in Vegas and I'm making odds, songwriters are going to get about 3% chance of making a living from it. So if you know that going in and you can live with that, don't be on the back end of a career that didn't happen for you thinking to yourself, I
wish I had
stood my ground and stood for the passionate thoughts I had about songs or whatever it is, the production of the song, the lyrics, whatever. Just don't compromise. I mean, don't be a jerk about it, but just don't compromise.
Yeah.
And find people in the same headspace, because I feel like there's so many songwriter groups of people that are just they're just grinding out songs, let's do a bunch of songs for sync, because we feel like, and they go in there and they just make this generic stuff.
Yeah.
Because, it's like that old adage, work smarter, not harder. Well, that applies to songwriting too. Write smarter, not harder. And that to me is the most important thing. Never compromise when you feel like a song isn't ready and somebody else wants to push it.
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts about Eureka Music? Tell me anything else you want to bring up about Eureka.
I'll say this about Eureka. I wasn't looking to do this in my life at this point. I've been a manager for a long time, and I love what I do. And I took a little break in my life to, purge myself of the music business for a few years.
Yeah, but it always comes back, doesn't it?
But I can't live without it. I can't quit. I can't quit you, music business. There's just something about the group of people at Eureka that is really hard to define. Most of the people at Eureka are not music business people, right? So they don't come to this equation jaded and arrogant, and
no, they're happy.
They're happy.
That's a weird thing.
They really care about art.
Absolutely.
I send songs over when I get them to these people. And in our world, in our business, I'll get a song I love. I just shared some music with you. I love to do that. That's like my favorite thing is to share music that I love. Like that's probably what got me into this business when I was 14 years old, and I would make, mix cassettes. Yeah, cassettes. It's so hard to find people who can strip away the jadedness of the frustrations of their own careers to come together to build a new company in the music space. That's the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is the people. These like-minded people who really were more passionate about graphic artists and painters and creators in that world, and I linked up. When I'm with them now, like I'll send them a song that I got from some submission, and like everybody writes me back. Like I'll send it to 6 people at Eureka, and I'll get an email like in sometimes in 10 minutes and sometimes the next day, like, I love this song and I love this part of the song. In the music business, you
never
can't
get
get
that.
people to listen to it, much less because they're just jaded and they think it's all fluff. And that's so the thing about Eureka that makes Eureka what it is, in my opinion, is that it's just really good people that give a shit. They care. Like I've not met a group of people more committed to artists than the Eureka people, and I've been in the music business almost 30 years. That's really shocking, right? I mean, most labels are, half the people there are more there for their own brand and who they want to be perceived as than they are for the artists that they represent. Yeah. So I feel really lucky about that.
Yeah, I personally love them because I agree with you. They actually care, and that is such a amazing step in this industry.
It really
is. That's sad to say, though, in the same breath. You know what I mean?
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
I mean, if you're a manager, you better get used to like no, and like from people you just made $1 million for last week, and they'll turn around today and say no. Yeah. Like, well, you didn't listen to me last week, and you made that money. Why is today any different? It's just a lack of humanity, I think.
Oh, I actually agree with you on that.
And I mean, because like this business is all about people, and if you don't love people, and like, I don't know why you're in it. Yeah. And that crowd over there is.
If you don't love music either, like people. The fact that they listen is such a
I think most
beautiful
people,
thing.
Yeah, most people in the music business would be, just as happy selling lipstick if it made them money and got them, VIP tickets. Yeah. They don't really care about music. It's more about the scene.
But the ones that do really do love it, and
oh yeah, and there are plenty of them too, and I consider a lot of those my dear friends. I mean, there's a bunch of us in the business that, have like found each other over the years.
The cream always rises.
Because we just love music and we love artists and we care about what we put out and it's important to us. And so, like, I have a couple managers that are like some of my best friends, and they're the same mindset. I mean, we compete for things.
Yeah, of course, but that's natural.
And it's
normal.
not a zero-sum game, right? No. I mean, like, just because they got something doesn't mean I can't make money too. Yeah. But it's not a lot of them. Yeah. Not a lot of label people, not a lot of those, and there are some lawyers too that are truly moved by music.
I agree. I work with a couple of them that I absolutely
love.
They're just
harder to find. You gotta.
Gotta kiss a couple frogs. It's okay.
You gotta kiss a couple frogs. You definitely do. But the thing about Eureka music to me that is the most compelling piece of it is just that, right? It's the people, and that's any company, right? I mean, you could have the best tech, you could have the best content, you could have all, but if you don't have the people who genuinely care about it and love it and support it and rally for it, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's that foundation.
Yeah, so
and it starts with the people.
So I feel really lucky.
I love it.
To have found them. I met them through an artist I managed, Bryce Soderbergh.
Oh, cool.
Bryce is a bass player in Lifehouse, and we just signed him to Eureka, and he called me one day. He's like, I met these really interesting people, and you should check them out. And 6 months later, we were doing a deal.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's really about the people up there.
Well, I think it's about the people, and I think it's about your passion, because you definitely brought life into that company in the music space, and I am so excited to see where Eureka goes and what happens with it, because I think it's an amazing company.
I mean, I don't know where it comes from, but it is like my life's work, and my mission in life to support artists, to fight for artists. I've never wanted to work at a label. I've always wanted to be on the artist side of the table.
I love that.
But I'm just one person.
Yeah.
So I can have all the passion in the world, but it takes a village to build a company,
Yeah.
and we got a great village.
Yeah.
We got a motherfucking great village. I don't know if you can use that, but we have a motherfucking
love it.
great.
I love
we really
it.
do. I mean, like Shannon, she does nothing
love
about
Shannon.
music, but she's so committed to like.
She's so passionate. She just wants to help.
I feel really lucky. I mean, yeah, and I know, and what's beautiful about it too is they feel lucky that they found me. So it's like this scenario where everybody appreciates everybody. It's not about ego. It's just about appreciating your work and your commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're Canadians. And Canadians are so sweet.
They are sweet. They're very nice.
They really are, man. We got a lot to learn from them.
We do.
About humanity and compassion for people.
Absolutely.
I want to make this statement. You can figure out where to cut this in,
Sure.
but I want to make this point. If you have a song that's getting used on YouTube or social or any of the socials or streaming, and you're seeing streams, I cannot tell you how many times someone has said to me, "Well, I'm with ASCAP, so I'm getting all my money." There are songwriters from a group, a gamer group called Nerd Out, and we met them maybe a year ago. And these guys have incredible numbers, like crazy numbers, over 1 billion YouTube views. I don't know what their streaming numbers are, but they're huge. And I asked them when I met them, who's collecting your publishing? And they said, well, we're with ASCAP. And, they thought because they had an ASCAP account that they were collecting all their money. And then I said to them, well, no, you're only collecting, U.S. and some of Canada. But like if your music is being performed in Europe and you don't have a admin, then you're not getting that money. There's no direct path from that exploited moment of your song to your bank account. There are these things called sub-publishers, and it's complicated. So like if I could just, like, if there was one point I could make to a songwriter, it would be just because you have a PRO, namely ASCAP or BMI, does not mean you're collecting all of your publishing. And if your music has a globally weighted presence, meaning you're getting as many streams in the U.S. as outside of the U.S., you're missing half of your royalties.
Yeah.
And don't do that.
Yeah.
Stop. Because all that sweat that you put into those songs, you're letting half of that money sit in that pool, and then that money gets, gobbled up by somebody else. That's such a key point.
I mean, for me, that goes back to the education, right? They don't understand that a PRO is not your publisher. They don't understand that. They don't understand. And I mean, one of my favorite things to do is ask artists, who's your publisher? And they typically tell me AWOL. And I go, oh, okay. AWOL is a distribution company, if people don't know. But that's not your publisher. And that kind of, for me, that tells me where they're at and what level they're at. Yeah. And I want that to be corrected. I want us to understand what it means to have a publisher, what a PRO is, what a distributor does, all these different things. And I just love that Eureka is doing that. And to me, that is why I love this company so much.
I really want our website to grow and, really unfold as a truly significant resource for that kind of information, and not just publishing. And I think Song Trust does a great job. I think they have a great website. I love their website. They've really done a great job at education on their site. But I think we go even further. Yeah. And I think we need to define, that point you were just making, people don't appreciate the difference between their master rights and their publishing rights. And inside of the publishing, what the writers share and the publishers share, and how that all works. And there's not a lot. I mean, there's a couple of books out there, but you got to be willing to open a textbook up and read a lot of dense material to get to those important nuggets. Yeah. So I really want to see us almost create a Eureka music
education.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because the more educated you are, the more able you are to monetize your work.
100%.
And if we claim to be artist friendly and artist passionate, then that effort, even though that effort doesn't result in like a royalty from the content we create. It supports the artist's ability or the songwriter's ability to understand where they're not getting the most out of their royalties and to make those changes.
I agree.
And again, this isn't a zero-sum game. If Eureka's not right for you, and there's another pub admin company that you have, relationship with, like, do that.
Yeah.
Like, but just do it. Don't sit around and say ASCAP's my publisher
Or AWOL.
or AWOL, and leave all that money out there.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
To me, the most important thing is for people to understand that there's a heart. This company
I think you got that across.
has a real heart for what it is that we do. Like, we really do. I'm here all week. I'm doing nothing but music supervisor and sync people meetings.
Yeah.
And
it's because you care.
Yeah, because I want to make money for these guys, and I'm not just interested in just passively collecting whatever just generated. I want to actually grow it.
Yeah, I
for
love
them,
that.
And I don't need to own a piece of the copyright. The collection royalty, the collection commissions is enough.
Yeah, licensing is where the future is, anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big time. So, it's really like, because I think people make decisions about who to go with on heart and not so much on intellect. And we're all heart. I mean, we're intellect too, but
it starts with the heart, though.
There's a group of people here that are just passionate about protecting artists, and it's hard to find that in our business. So when you do find people that are kind of like-minded in that way,
hold on to
and they're not just full of shit in that way, like they're not sitting out having a drink bullshitting you about it, but really show up and do the work.
Yeah.
They're hard to find.
I agree.
They're really hard to find. But we got it.
Yeah.
We got it. All right.
Well,
anything
amazing.
Else?
No, thank you so much for being here with us today, Scott. Really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. My pleasure. Reach out anytime. I listen to everything somebody sends me.
I love it.
It might take me a little bit, but I get to it.
I love it.
In fact, I just, on Sunday, I traveled all day Sunday, and I sent out about 20 emails to different people who've submitted music to us that I listened to, and at least got feedback to them. And
that's important.
I didn't think that. I don't think that music submissions get listened to very much, and there's a scale issue for me that we'll get to a point where it's not necessarily scalable, and I'll need to have more people listening. But yeah, send us your music.
Love it. Perfect.
All right.